Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping away from the usual kind of analysis. We're actually climbing aboard a real piece of history.
We are indeed. Elvis Presley's private jet, the Lisa Marie.
And this isn't just, about an airplane.
No, not at all. It's
No.
so much more. It's like a window into Elvis himself, his life, his style, and what really mattered to him.
Exactly. And the sources we've looked at for you, they paint such a vivid picture. It starts as this retired Delta airliner, right?
Yeah, a workhorse plane.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this symbol of his huge personality, but also, really importantly, his love for his daughter.
So we'll trace that journey from commercial plane to this totally customized flying palace and now, a museum piece people love.
Our mission, you could say, is to really dig into the story behind this amazing aircraft and see what it tells us about the king.
Okay, so where does this story actually begin? How did he get this plane?
It kicks off in April 1975. Elvis is, he's massive by this point, a global star. And he decides, right, I need a private jet.
And he wasn't exactly aiming low, was he?
Definitely not thinking small. He buys this retired Convair 880 from Delta Airlines, paid $250,000 for it.
Which sounds like a lot, but maybe not for a jet. Though, interestingly, I read he first thought about a Boeing 707.
Yeah, imagine that. A 707 would have been, well, a real behemoth, even for Elvis. The Convair 880 was still big, 4 engines, but maybe a bit more practical for what he needed.
And the registration number tells the story, too. N8AEEP.
That's right, the EP for Elvis Presley. No mistaking whose plane it was.
But even more personal than the registration, the name he picked.
Lisa Marie.
Naming this incredible machine after his daughter. I mean, that really speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It shows this wasn't just about status or convenience. It was personal, deeply personal, like a flying reminder of family.
Okay, so he buys the plane, but he didn't just, fly it as is.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
What came next was this huge, and I mean huge, customization job. Super expensive, too.
How expensive are we talking?
Well, the sources suggest somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000 extra on top of the purchase price.
Wow, so several times what he paid for the actual plane.
Exactly. He was basically building, a Graceland in the sky.
And the details inside, just incredible.
Let's talk about them. Gold-plated seatbelt buckles. Just think about that for a second.
Gold-plated seatbelts. Okay, that sets the tone.
Right, and it didn't stop there. A queen-size bed on a plane with its own private sleeping area.
Plus, suede couches, wood paneling.
Rich wood paneling, yeah. Suede everywhere. It was pure comfort, pure luxury. And the bathroom.
Let me guess, more gold.
A gold flake sink. It's these really specific, almost over-the-top touches that show his personal style,
And a top-tier stereo system, naturally.
Of course. Music was everything to him. You can just picture him, can't you? Kicking back on those couches, listening to music, flying high above everything.
What's really interesting, too, is how involved he was personally. This wasn't just him saying, make it fancy.
No, he was apparently very hands-on, choosing things, directing the design. It was his vision he was creating.
Like building a personal sanctuary, but one that could fly.
Exactly. Control over his environment, even at 30,000 feet.
So this incredible, newly done-up plane, the Lisa Marie, it finally arrives in Memphis. When was that?
November 10th, 1975. Must have been quite a sight.
I bet. And it wasn't just a showpiece, right? It got put to work straight away.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely vital. Flying him between Memphis, Vegas, L.A., for his shows and appearances, and crucial for touring.
Made getting around way easier, I imagine,
Right.
in series style, too.
Definitely. Faster, more comfortable. Operationally, you're looking at a crew of 4. It could fly about 2,600 miles nonstop.
And pretty fast.
Cruising speed around 615 miles per hour. So yeah, it could cover ground quickly.
And it wasn't his only plane, was it? There was another one.
That's right, the Hound Dog 2. A smaller Lockheed Jetstar.
What was its shot?
Mostly support. Carrying band gear, luggage, his whole entourage, It just shows the sheer scale of the Elvis operation.
Which brings us to a story that perfectly captures that scale. And maybe the eccentricity, too. The Fool's Gold flight.
Ah, yes, the sandwich run. This is legendary.
Yep.
February 1st, 1976. It was actually Lisa Marie's birthday.
And what happened? He just fancied a specific sandwich.
Pretty much. He and some of his guys got a sudden craving for these things called Fool's Gold loaf sandwiches. They came from a place in Denver, the Colorado Mine Company. Apparently quite the culinary experience.
A sandwich so good you fly to another state for.
Exactly. He didn't just order in. He fired up the Lisa Marie, flew everyone to Denver, picked up, get this, 22 of these sandwiches.
22. How big were they?
Apparently enormous. like a whole hollowed-out loaf of bread filled with peanut butter, jelly, and bacon.
Okay. So they grab the sandwiches and fly right back.
Straight back to Memphis. The estimated cost for this little trip, around $16,000.
$16,000 for
In
sandwiches.
1976, money.
Oh.
It's peak Elvis, isn't it? The
Other.
impulsiveness, the extravagance, acting on a whim because, well, he could.
It's just such a wild story. Captures that almost mythical lifestyle.
It really does. But of course, that kind of high-flying life, it had an endpoint. After Elvis passed away in August 77, things changed.
The jets were grounded, I assume.
Yeah, the Lisa Marie, Hound Dog II, they stopped flying. And his father, Vernon, who was handling the estate, suddenly faced these huge maintenance bills. Jets aren't cheap to keep, even on the ground.
So a tough decision had to be made.
It seems so. In 1978, Vernon sold both jets. A businessman named O.K. Johnson bought them. Pragmatic, maybe, but definitely the end of an era for those planes.
But then, a few years later, Graceland opens as a museum. 1982, right? Under Priscilla Presley.
That's right. And it became this huge draw, this pilgrimage site for fans almost immediately.
But there was something missing, wasn't there? People felt it.
They did. The plane, it felt like a key part of the Elvis story wasn't there at Graceland. It had become such a symbol.
So people wanted it back.
There was definitely a feeling it belonged there. And eventually, in 1984, Presley Enterprises managed to work out a lease deal. They brought both jets back to Memphis.
And the return journey itself was apparently quite the spectacle.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine seeing the Lisa Marie, this huge jetliner, being carefully towed down Elvis Presley Boulevard right back to Graceland. Crowds lined the streets. It was like a final homecoming.
A really powerful moment for the fans, I bet.
Definitely. A tangible piece of his legacy returning. And once it was back, that they turned it into an exhibit you could walk through.
So people could actually see inside, see the gold sink and the suede couches.
Exactly. Step inside Elvis's private world.
Yeah.
It was a stroke of genius, really. Gave fans such an intimate connection.
And that connection is still strong. I remember back in 2015, there was some worry, wasn't there, about the planes maybe leaving Graceland.
There was huge fan concern, yeah. Rumors flew around. It just showed how deeply people felt about those jets being there.
But it all worked out in the end.
Thankfully, yes. An agreement was reached to keep the jets permanently at Graceland, so they're safe, preserved for the future.
You know, when you trace that whole journey of the luxury, the grounding, the sale, the return, becoming this beloved exhibit, it almost mirrors Elvis's own story in a way, doesn't it?
It really does. The incredible highs, the period of silence, and then this enduring legacy that just keeps going. The plane went from personal luxury to public legend.
A really compelling parallel.
Yeah, this flying palace, it's now like a monument to his impact.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on the Lisa Marie, it's really clear it's so much more than just metal and engines.
Absolutely. It's a symbol, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of his love for his daughter, for sure, but also that larger-than-life, extravagant world he built.
A very tangible connection to a true icon.
Definitely.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought for you listening. Thinking about the Lisa Marie, what other personal things, possessions, or maybe even big projects, give us that kind of unique insight into the lives of famous figures. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What objects today will tell the stories of our icons tomorrow?